All right. So here's part two. Um, Go ahead.
No, is part two seeing the future?
Well, it's whatever we want it to be. We don't have to be as nice as we were in part one.
Okay, so I have a thing that was I'll put to you. Last night was kind of interesting. Yesterday was my wife's birthday. You
Oh,
probably knew that.
yeah.
And so I got up in the morning, and first thing she did is she got up, and I got up, and first thing she did is started singing happy birthday to herself. Okay.
That's
Now, I'm
awesome.
already saying, all right, what does that
No,
mean?
that's
It,
awesome. It's
yeah,
like, wow, I would have said what I would have said. I said, honey, that's so awesome. I mean, saves me from singing it to you. So I appreciate you doing that. That's so cute.
yeah. Well, and I was gonna say happy birthday, but in my mind, I think, well, she already said happy birthday to herself, so she didn't really need to hear it from me. But that's just
Right?
me. Okay,
Right?
okay. So what I did was, from that point, said she did have to go to work, and I said, I'll take you out to dinner, and just let me know for sure what time you can go out to dinner. So we go out to dinner. So we go out to dinner, and that was kind of nice, and we just kind of did this thing, uh, and I got her a birthday present. I was a little on the bubble
Hey,
on that,
see,
but I
in our 40 years of marriage, I think I've only gotten Rosanna a birthday present once, myself personally. It was weird. It was like, I think it was our 33rd or 35th anniversary or birthday, because our anniversary and birthday is really close together. And she tricked me. Like, after 30 years of never expecting me, I mean, I would have my kids get the birthday or one of my associates get the birthday. I would I would have other people, or a lot of times she'd just get her own birthday, which I was fine with. She's happy, I'm happy. But once she tricked me and she wanted a birthday present, I didn't know it. I'm like, whoa, okay, the rules changed there. Sorry, go ahead.
so just keep in mind that my wife doesn't have just a birthday; she usually has a birthday week. So
Right,
so she starts letting me know, like
right,
a week behind, that
right,
the whole week is pretty special. So I'm
right,
supposed to be aware of that. All right. Now I'm talking to you as a white male over 50. All
right.
right.
Go
Understanding that
for her when she expects the whole week.
so it's going on and on. And so then I go out to dinner, and then we had some gift cards that we were supposed to do. I misplaced one. And so I spent some money myself because I, couldn't find my gift card. And that's all right. So I got there, we bring some dinners home, and then there's some leftovers. So now this is to me a white male over 50 kind of moment, because I'm sitting there saying, oh, good. I've got extras. I just spent, $50 for this meal, and I'm thinking if she doesn't want it, I'll eat it for, lunch tomorrow because I paid for it. So what she does is
That
my
was a mistake.
my
I
wife,
You don't
my
even have
son.
to tell me. I just see what did nobody explain this to you? Like
All right,
what,
well, we're gonna keep
what's what
going.
what's hers is hers and what's yours is hers, especially food. Like
Well, so here's what. So yeah, so here's what happens. So then I'm looking forward to the things, and this isn't the first time this has happened. And then my son comes home, and she says, "Hey, Adam, you can have some, the rest of my dinner that I had." I'm okay. And so what I said, something very simple, very simple. I said, I'm okay with you giving him, I guess, your portion, but you didn't give him my portion, did you? Now, at that point, she's very angry with me. And she says that I'm
wait,
disrespecting my son. Okay.
you're
Now,
what?
I think this is a perfect white male over 50 moment. All
Right.
right.
I'm just saying why I don't understand why are you disrespecting? I don't I what I maybe Mary, like what do you understand why she's saying you're disrespecting?
Well, it's because uh, I don't feed my son, enough.
Is he like 6 months old?
No, he's 33 years old. So so I'm sitting here, and now all of a sudden she's unhappy with me because I've disrespected my son because I said, just don't give him my food. Okay. All right. Now, now, I mean, this is a real life thing. I've been married for 40 some plus years, this woman. And I'm thinking to myself, how is it that in her mind, I've disrespected my son when it really comes down to I paid for all that food and I
Right.
overpaid more than I should have for all the food. And I kind of want to get a little bit of value back out of the food that I had. So now here's the point. And then somehow, when I remonstrate a little bit about having given away my food, that then I'm disrespecting my son. So I think that I come to you and say, you're the guy who has a therapist. You tell me what the issue is.
Right. I don't know. Okay. I'd have to check with Beth, but I have a feeling. Okay. I have a feeling Beth might say, Mark, Patrick has some of the same issues that you do. I'm like, okay, what's that? And she would say, he's got social autism. Okay. And so what you both have to do is you have to go ahead and give a physical representation to your wife or kids or other people you know. And what you do is you go like this. Just go like this. Just go up or go down. Just go down. Yeah, you just go,
Okay.
you just do it to them. It'll work so good. This is why I think it's probably Beth. Now, Beth doesn't get ticked off when when I'm wrong. Like, this is one of the reasons I love my therapist. She's
Okay.
amazing. Like, it's weird on how the people who do believe that she's real, okay, not my wife and a number of my kids and friends, but the people who believe she's real, they're like, can she be my therapist too? So I've asked her, and she's like, I'm really not taking on any new patients at this time. I'm like, okay, but I like her because she's nice to me. Like,
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm
here's, I
sure it's
guess, what.
not to get more business from me. Like, I'm sure it's not that. Like, therapists would never do that or tell you what you want to hear. Like, none of my daughter's therapists would do that. Like, no, it's just, so what you do is you just go like this. You just go and put the hand up and go down like this. And then they're going to say, what are you doing? And you're saying, I'm turning the switch off. And they're like,
Well,
what switch? And you're like, the caring switch.
okay. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I did.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I did. And I mean, because that's pretty natural for me. I will have to say that I was, what's so interesting about this is my son wouldn't have cared. I'd have gone out and said, hey, don't eat my food. He said, okay. And that would have been no big deal. Okay. But my wife cared. Okay. And, uh, and my wife looks at me and
Yeah.
says, you're not supposed to have your own food. And I'm like, well, what do you mean I'm not supposed to have my own food? Okay. And so I can tell that you are truly enjoying this at this point. And now, just so that we can make this for the rest of for the podcast, what people need to know is that my wife is a licensed professional therapist. Okay. Now, tell me, isn't there a certain amount of irony in all of this? Now, I think that makes for a pretty good podcast, don't you?
See, this is what's interesting because I'll say to women that may be over 40 or 50, I'll just say, you like, once you're diagnosed, and there's only 4 people in the world that have ever been diagnosed with social autism. This is
Huh.
why it's not a thing, because the people in, the mental health profession, I don't know what their limit. You got to have probably 100,000 people you can diagnose with it. Otherwise, you can't make any money.
Okay.
And so, but if you go ahead and say, you start telling your wife and kids, it seems like I have some, some symptoms of being socially autistic.
Okay.
So you just start saying that. See, when you have a disability, what's supposed to happen is because women, we all know women are nicer than men, right? They
Right.
communicate better, they're nicer than men, they listen better, they understand. You know, that's just what women, this is what it is. Like we're taught this from little boys. And when you turn 50, you start saying, I think they were lying because I don't like I've got four daughters and they're all women now, and now it's 5-on-1 sometimes, and it's not a
Oh yeah.
fair fight. It's not a fair match. Like it's just not for them. And so,
Yeah.
eh, you
Now let
know,
me ask you this. Let me just so we put that. I want to insert this a little bit because I'm still stuck on the fact that there's the food, and then we're not allowed to have our own food because I've learned that this is a historical issue with
no,
my
this
wife.
it's genetic. It's in a woman.
I was going to say
No,
because
it's
I
in a
used to.
woman. It's genetic because all of my granddaughters, every one of them, everything, all six of my granddaughters, like I'm eating and they all just come and eat off of my plate. It's just, but boy, if they have food, oh, grandpa
Yeah.
can't. Yeah. So no, don't worry about that. It's genetic within a woman to go ahead and be like, your food is her food. She can eat your food. It's fine. You can't have any of yours, but her food is her food. It's funny because our youngest daughter, we went out to Denver and they gave us some puff popcorn because the people she nannies for, that's their company. And my wife, like they gave us, I don't know, 30 of these. And my wife likes caramel, you know, the popcorn thing. She likes a
Sure.
specific flavor. And guess, like, you know, there's 10 flavors and I'm testing, like I'm trying all 10 of them. And I committed the unforgivable sin. I ate one of her favorite.
Okay.
And I paid an emotional price for that. A lot of trauma. I didn't like Beth so much there because when I explained that to her, she's like, stop being a wuss, Mark. I'm like, well, that's not very nice, Beth. But I thought it was. I mean, I was traumatized. So I learned my lesson. My wife taught me the lesson. Don't eat my favorite. So I said something today about it and she giggled. I don't know why. Do all the women in your life giggle when you have trauma and hurt and pain?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
See, I think that's like, it's weird. Like if you laugh about their trauma, their pain, they get mad.
Yes.
That's not accept, but they can do it. It's like, I thought you were for equal rights. I thought you were for respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. And
That
so
that
she
that
hid.
stream flows one direction. Let's just
Right,
put it that way.
right. That's exactly right. So she hid all of her caramel stuff. She hid it like a rat or something, or like a
Yeah.
you know. She took all of her stuff and she hid it from me. And it's like, really? Like it's just so they're very possessional. I don't know. It's
Well,
something.
and the food is special. Now, let me ask you this. I have to ask you kind of your opinion. One of the things that used to annoy me was I would, have food. I'd give food to everybody, and I have my food. Then my wife comes over and starts taking food off of my plate. Okay. And one day, what I did was I had an Italian sausage, only this was a jalapeno Italian sausage. So I had the sausage, and I wondered if she was going to go and grab my sausage. And so, sure enough, she comes running by, and I happened to have it out on the couch, and I was eating and she grabs my Italian sausage, and then she wolfs down half of that Italian sausage without breathing, I think. But then all of a sudden, she looks at me, her eyes get all watery, and she runs to the bathroom and she begins vomiting. now, and then it turns out to be my fault.
Right. And she's mad at
Did
you.
you bait her?
What? What?
Did you bait her?
Did you purposefully put your Italian sausage there so that she would grab it and eat it?
Knowing that she likes to eat off your plate?
Well, let's just go ahead and let's just say, I'm not saying he did. Let's just say he did. Let's say he did that. Let's just say he did it. Is that wrong?
Yeah,
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
it was wrong.
Why? Why is it wrong?
Because you're supposed to know that she likes to eat off of your plate. So you're supposed to have food on your plate that she
Why are you
likes.
supposed to help us understand that? Why is it okay? Like we can't eat, her food, but she can eat our food. Why is that okay?
Because we're women.
Okay. So just so you know, that's kind of how that works. So
Right.
I have learned that women are very sensitive about food. When my kids were young, I had 5 boys. And you know what? If they were acting up, I expected a certain amount of order around the dinner table. Maybe it wasn't, the rest of the household sometimes, but at dinner time, I expected it to be orderly, and if my kids got disorderly, I would send them to bed and say, you don't need dinner. My wife really had a hard time with that. And I got accused of abuse more than once. And I looked at her and I said, those kids are not starving to death. Look at them. Okay. They will make it to tomorrow morning. I promise you. And I can tell you that it just, it's been an ongoing thing where it's just kind of a mystery to me. I know it exists, but as a white male over 50, it remains a bit of a mystery.
Right.
So,
and
just
this is
so you
where Beth says that this podcast is therapeutic for me. And she says that I'm free to go ahead and say anything I want on the podcast. And I'm like, well, what if I say something that my wife or kids don't like? And she says, it's your podcast. They don't have to listen to it. And I'm like, that kind of makes sense.
I agree.
Then I ask her, well, what about when they become terrorists? And, and they, and it's like she didn't have a real good answer for that. So she said she's thinking about that. I was thinking, she says, well, but she's, not a man, male therapist. Well, probably, I don't know that a male therapist would be a therapist, but a man would say, you don't negotiate with terrorists. You just don't. Because,
Right.
you just shoot them.
Right.
You just shoot the terrorists, And so maybe that's where that Amish joke came from. Huh. Subtly.
What's the Amish joke?
The Amish joke is there's an Amish gentleman and, he's driving a carriage and there's horses and stuff. And the horse goes ahead and eats the grass, on the side. And the Amish gentleman says that he yells at the horse, that's once. And so horse gets him back on track, goes down, eats some alfalfa on the side. And the Amish gentleman says, that's twice. And then goes a little bit further and eats some hay, gets distracted and, eats some hay. And the Amish gentleman says, that's 3 times, gets down, shoots the horse dead. Just boom. His wife, Amish wife, is like, she's freaking out. Like, she's like, that's our best horse. I can't believe you did that. Like, very critical of him. I mean, not that wives do that or critical of their, but she's very upset. And he looks at her and he's like, that's once.
Okay. And only you, I'll bet you Mary Jo and Elaine are not laughing about that.
Actually, I am.
Okay.
I've heard
it
them multiple times.
Okay. I've never heard that before. That's pretty good.
Right?
I'm not sure I could say that to my wife, though.
Why not?
I just don't know that I could. I would pay a dear price.
Say it and run.
Yeah, I said and say, Mark told me this interesting joke today.
Right.
You want to hear it?
Blame Mark. Right. Or you can just say, yeah, I heard this joke on the White Males Over 50 podcast, but I'm not going to repeat it.
That's probably the better part of discretion. See, your social autism is not absolute. That's for sure.
Well, it is actually, because when you go ahead and tell a woman that you can't tell her something, she's going to go ahead and press and press and press. Then what you do, and because you got, legal background, draw up a contract. That's what we ought to do. Draw up a contract and say, I will tell you what you've asked for, but you're not gonna, and then have a list of everything that she's not, like, she can't go ahead and, take a pound of flesh from you. Like, this is what's weird, but it goes all the way back. You can see it in the Bible with Abraham and Sarah. Like, the whole Middle East conflict comes from that situation.
Okay.
Where a husband listened to his wife when he shouldn't have.
Well, I mean, it happens. So I understand totally.
Yeah. There's
so our question for Mary Jo has to be, just as a curiosity, having heard this podcast so far, how do you feel about food, Mary Jo?
Like, I really want it right now.
And the real question is, do you want your fiance's food right now?
My guess is she doesn't care. Yeah, like anything.
Actually, right now, I would love to have his food because he's in Florida, so he's got to have better food than I do.
Okay.
Well,
yeah,
there you go.
He doesn't have my cooking, so.
Okay, there you go. So, Mary Jo, do you have any questions for the white male over 50 today?
I don't think so.
Elaine, do you have any questions for the white male over 50?
Yeah, how do we women be more caring, I guess you can say, for the white male over 50, or just our husbands, period, and be more insightful to not take your food or let you have our food?
Okay, can I try it?
Wasn't that cool? Like, if you're not going to give me your food, then I don't want, like, that doesn't seem like a very Christian or Amish thing to do. Like, if you don't, like, it's so weird on how women, it's genetic. It's like wired into them. Like, huh.
I have an answer for that. Pretty interesting. Here's the deal. It isn't about the food and never really was about the food. The one thing that men need and want from their wives is respect. That's the one thing. The one thing. And the food is merely representative of respect. And that would be the way to handle that.
And that's for
what do you think, Mark?
See, that's for Patrick. So this is what's maybe complicated. Like, because different husbands are gonna, like, if my wife eats off my plate, I don't know if I care. Like, my girls, my granddaughters, I don't know that I really care. I just think it's humorous. I think it's humorous that they do that and they don't see the hypocrisy, that they don't see, that they don't see it's genetic within girls, like with little girls, 1 and 2 years old. And so for me, I think, Elaine, if your husband gets irritated by that, don't do it. So what irritates him? If something irritates him, don't irritate him. Or at a minimum, if you irritate him, then expect that he's going to irritate you back.
Or,
so, in other words, be aware of what's irritating to him from you.
Yeah.
Or smile and then ask, knowing that he's going to give it to you anyway. You see, to me, it's very simple. But that is not necessarily intuitive, but it works out very well. If my wife says, can I have, that Italian sausage, I would say, sure. I just, sure. And she'd say, do you have a problem with me offering the rest of my food to your son? No, not at all. Okay.
See,
to me, that's why I said if you do that, it's very simple.
This triggers something because Lily, when she's 8 years old, she's our granddaughter. She's our first granddaughter that we had. And when she was, I don't know, a year old, our youngest daughter, who was probably in her early, late teens, early 20s, she's probably around 20 years old. And she's like, Dad, you're nicer to Lily than you are me. Like when she's over at the house, you're so excited to go ahead and see her, and you're not excited to see me. And I said, so it's interesting how a 20-year-old woman is jealous of like a 18-month-old baby child. Like, I'm like, that's kind of weird. She's jealous of the attention I give an 18-month. She wants that. And I said to her, I said, well, Angela, sweetheart, Lily's nice to me. Like, like she's nice. She's excited to see me. She's nice to me. If you were excited to see me and you were nice to me, well, then I'd treat you well. Like I'd treat you like I treat her. I'd be excited. So it was weird. She was living outside the home, and the next time she came over, she was all nice to me. And then she got all upset because I was so shocked. I'm like, does she want something? Like, what's going like I didn't know how to process it. She says, see, Dad, I told you, I was nice to you and you didn't respond the way you do to Lily. I'm like, you got to do it more than once, honey. Like it's not one time.
So here's another white man over 50, which is, to me, just something that we might maybe leave the podcast with to follow up next time. But I had a situation where my wife says, do the dishes. We got company coming over. And I looked at her and I said, it's a little easier if you ask me. And she says to me in a frustrated way, okay, would you do the dishes? And I said, no. And she looked at me and she said, and then she got angry. And she said, and then she went into a bit of a rant. And then she looked at me and she said, you said if I asked that you would have done it. I said, well, yeah, but if it was really a question, I could say no. But I kind of suspected it wasn't a real question. And so I said no to test you. And I was right. It wasn't a real question. And so, as you can imagine, it was a tense evening with company over that night. So to me, does that not make perfect sense to you, Mark?
It does. It makes perfect sense to me. Like, it's like that. Like, it's so interesting when somebody asks a question and they're not really asking a question. They're just, and it's like, well, if it's really a question, so that makes perfect sense. I believe that I've got another friend coming on here. And so if you're able to stick around for another podcast, Peter Miles, he's going to be here. And he's always interested. He's one of those. So he's the past board member of BMW, past president of Rolls-Royce.
Okay.
But he's one that's a little sensitive when I talk about white males over 50.
You know what? I cannot stay because I have an appointment that got scheduled.
No worries. If you're listening to the broadcast of this, I don't even know why you are. Share it with other people. Like, if you're a husband and your wife doesn't appreciate you, share it with her because she'll be happy that she doesn't have Patrick or I. I'm just saying, always remember we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Right. All right. We're good.